welcome to our Home Connect for Kids Club. It's Easter time, I suspect, at your house, and you're all well familiar with Easter eggs, but we're going to tell the Easter story using some different eggs. In our first egg, there is a donkey. This guy's little to see, so I'll show you my bigger donkey. And he reminds us of the Palm Sunday when Jesus came into the temple riding a donkey. Wasn't unusual for a king to come in to a city like Jerusalem, but normally he would have ridden on a horse and not a lowly donkey. So the donkey would tell us that Jesus came as a peaceful king. The second pink egg has coins in it, and that reminds us of Judas, who sold his Savior, or sold information about where Jesus was praying, for 30 pieces of silver. I don't know what that would be worth today. That's 30 pieces of some silver coins. And in the time of Christ, that would have been a lot of money. So the coins remind us that Judas sold his Savior for money. Our purple egg has a little bitty cup in it. We've got a bigger one. And this reminds us of the Passover supper that Jesus shared with his disciples when he held the cup up and said, "This represents my body, or my blood, that's going to be shed for you." And so it simplifies, or it tells us that it was going to cost him blood. It was going to cost him his very life. Our orange egg has praying hands in it. I got a bigger pair here. And if Jesus had to go to a garden and pray, it tells us that we need prayer. We need to take time to pray as well. Jesus knew what was going to happen. He knew they were going to take his life. And he was needing to know that God the Father was with him. Our green egg has a little piece of a leather strip in it. And this is to remind us that the soldiers whipped Jesus and tore his back open with whips that had pieces of steel and glass in the ends. And for a man that was perfect and sinless, he took on all of my sin and all of your sin. And he gladly paid that price because he loved us, even though we had not yet been born. Our yellow egg has a little tiny crown of thorns in it. And if you could feel this, you would see that it's quite picky. It's not going to give you it's not going to tear your skin, but this one is just representative of the fact that they mocked him, they made fun of Jesus, and they took thorns and wove it into a crown, and they jammed it into his skin, into his head, excuse me, and made fun of him as a king. Our yellow egg has nails inside. These ones might be easier to see. They took real nails, real spikes, and nailed them into the hands of Jesus and into the feet of Jesus. That hurts. I can't imagine what going right through our skin would have hurt, how much that would have hurt Jesus. Our light green egg has a dice in it. The Bible tells us that they played a game of dice to win the clothes that Jesus wore. They didn't tear it. They just gambled for it. Jesus had so very little, only the clothes on his back, really. But he was God's son. He had everything, and he gave it all. This one has a little plastic sword, a spear in it. The Bible tells us that when people were crucified, they were hung on a cross, and then they would break their legs to make them die quicker. When the soldiers came along to Jesus, they discovered he was already dead, so they did not break his legs. They shoved the sword up in his side, and it says water and blood ran out, separated. Tells them that he was really dead. In this one, there's a little bit of cloth. I have a bigger linen. When Jesus died, they took him down from the cross, and they wrapped him up in linen, and they put spices in, and they wrapped his body up and put him in the tomb. And then they would have taken probably a piece this big to wrap just his face. so we can't set the table with the linens, but that we think of the fact that Christ folded his linen after he rose, and he left it, which in that country signifies, I'm coming back. When we just scrunch it up and toss it, that means you can go ahead and clean the table. But when it's folded the way Christ was, it meant, I'm coming back. And he did. Our pink egg has a stone in it, and this is a much smaller stone, but it represents the rock that they rolled in front of the tomb to make sure that Jesus didn't get out and his disciples didn't get in. So they couldn't steal his body and make up lies and say that Jesus had rose. But he did, in fact, rise. Our last egg is empty. And this reminds us that the tomb was empty. And there was no body in it because Jesus rose. And he's alive today. And he can live in your heart and in mine. God bless you at Easter.